Hey, what's up YouTube? It's IAzerXD here, bringing you, my Odd Eyes Magician deck profile. At the time of recording, it's the April the 8th, and I've just had a look at the new ban list that becomes operational on the 11th of April, and I'm a bit disappointed to see that a couple of cards that are used in this deck are becoming either banned or limited to one. So I wanted to do a deck profile of what I'm using right now before I make an alteration to accommodate the changes. And I'll obviously, when I get to this card, I'll explain why it helps me out and what I could possibly put into to compensate really. So I'll get started. I'll shift the extra decks to the side, and I can tell you already that it's an Odd Eyes deck, so I'm going to run 3 Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragons. I'm going to run 3 Wisdom Eye Magicians. Now unfortunately this is one of the cards that have been hit quite heavily. It's now gone down to 1 copy, or it's going to go down into 1 copy with this new ban list. Ideally, this deck really needed 3 because obviously you place it in your pendulum zone, you blow it up, and you replace it with something else. It's a great searcher, and in that same turn you could possibly pendulum summon it back as a level 4 monster and overlay into a rank 4. But yeah, it's going to be sad to see this go down to 1, but I guess there's not really much you can do about it. And then we run 3 Oath Dragon Magicians. I'm not sure if you can see, the lighting is quite bad here. But yeah, it's a scale 2 with 2100 attack points. And if you've got another magician in your pendulum zone along with it, you can return 1 magician pendulum monster back from the face-up extra deck back to your hand. So it can be used to recycle your scale 8s. And as well, when it's normal or special summons, you can return 1 Odd Eyes or Magician Pendulum monster from your graveyard to your hand. So yeah, running 3 copies is a must. And then there is 3 copies of Dragon Pit Magician. With this, it has a scale 8 and pretty decent defense, but it's also its pendulum ability of discarding a pendulum monster to blow up one of your opponent's spell or trap cards. So definitely running 3 of those. Then 1 copy of the Dragon Pulse Magician. This, being scale 1, has an effect similar to Dragon Pit, except instead of the spell and traps, it blows up an opponent's monster. Ideally, I don't really want to run any more than 1, because I find that it can clog in this deck, but now that Wisdom Eye has been limited to 1, I might chuck another 1 in, just to make up the numbers. From there, we have the, I refer to them as the XE Magicians, really. I don't know how you lot pronounce them, but I always pronounce them as Zhangqi and Zhangsheng. And basically, these are a must if you want to go into this and get the full effect. Lovely Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. You use this if you're going in from say rank 4, and you've got Odd Eyes and say Dark Rebellion. You use this, and I believe it makes the rank 4 become a rank 7, and then this one makes it so you can use that rank 7 as an overlay material this turn. So yeah. Next, 1 Noble Dragon Magician. It's a tuner, so you can bring out your level 7s and level 8s. The good thing about it, well, in my opinion, is that if you don't use an Odd Eyes monster, it has to go face to the bottom of your deck. So there's always, the chance to recycle it back later with another Pendulum Call. Then we have a Timebreaker Magician. I really only use this to take out one of my opponent's powerful monsters, so I have more often than not, an empty field to target on with. Then we run 1 Performer Power School Crobat Joker. You normal it, you get to add yourself a Odd Eyes monster, Magician Pendulum monster, or Performer Power monster from your deck to your hand, or it can be functioned as a scale 8. We kind of knew from the emergency ban list that this was limited to 1, but with the newly updated April one, it's now set in stone. It's now at 1. Now these next two, Performer Power Trump Girl and Performer Power Splash Mammoth, these are my main focus of getting out my fusions. Splash Mammoth, you can use its ability to fuse from the field without polymerization, only once per duel, and Trump Girl has a similar effect, but it's once per turn. And also with Splash Mammoth, it's a beast, so I can always bring out Beast Eyes Pendulum Dragon. And with Trump Girl, if it's destroyed from it being in a pendulum zone, then I believe I get to target one dragon monster in my graveyard and special summon it. So it can bring back probably, well, what I think is the most effective Odd Eyes fusion monster, Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. And that's it for the pendulums. But I've only really got 2 other monsters in this, and that would be Odd Eyes Saber Dragon and Tuning Magician. Odd Eyes Saber, it's an Odd Eyes related card, level 7, pretty high attack, and it's got an awesome ability, as if it takes out one of your opponent's monsters, you can then blow up another one in quick succession. And obviously with it being level 7, you can go into those rank 7 plays. With Tuning Magician, I use it just as a level 1 tuner, and obviously it can be special summoned back from a graveyard provided you have 2 Magician monsters in your pendulum zones. However, from this effect it will get banished. The only downside to it is that when it's normal or special summoned, you lose 400 life points and your opponent gains 400 life points. So moving on to the spells. Now we ran 3 Wavering Eyes. Now this is a card that's just straight up banned. So I've got to really find some replacements for this. But yeah, it's got a great ability. You pop every monster in each player's pendulum zones, and then you play, well, up to 4 of its abilities in quick succession, deal 500 damage, add a pendulum monster to your hand, banish 1 card on the field, and the last one I believe was to search another Wavering Eyes from your deck to your hand. So it's going to be I'm going to be really sad that this has been banned now. I suppose an alternative could have been, say, Pendulum Storm, but then I lack the ability to add a pendulum from my deck to my hand. And then we have 2 Pendulum Call. I think 2 is enough. You could probably stretch to 3, provided you chuck in a couple more Pendulum monsters. Maybe just chuck in another Dragon Pulse, another Wisdom Eye, and another Time Breaker, perhaps. But yeah, at the minute I'm going to stick with 2. Then we have 1 copy of Odd Eyes Fusion. With Splash Mammoth and Trump Girl, and then this, there's 3 ways to fusion, and even if you want Beast Eyes, which is in the extra deck, as you'll see later, then you don't even need to fuse with Polymerization or Odd Eyes Fusion. We have a Sky Iris. It's a very good way for me to get Odd Eyes monsters to my hand. Well, actually, saying that, I only actually run 4 Odd Eyes monsters. But yeah, it's, you pop a scale or you pop a monster, and more often than not, I'll end up popping a pendulum monster. Add Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon from deck to hand and set it in the scale. And then sometimes I'll be able to bring that monster back straight away. Then we play a Swords Revealing Light. I find that running this can help if you ever get yourself a bad hand to start off with. It has been known to happen, but the way I've constructed this deck, well, before this ridiculous new ban list, is that, well, for me it works. I'm not really sure how to explain to you guys, but I know the ins and outs, and I know what works, what don't work, and I know that if I royally mess up, then it's just over. We next play 1 Pot of Riches. Basically, you just shuffle 3 Pendulum monsters from either your graveyard, which is that allocated slot over there, and face up on the extra deck. Shuffle them back into your deck and draw twice. It's a good draw engine, and it's decent for recycling, really. Onto the traps, we run 2 Pendulum back. You have a scale. You can add monsters back from your graveyard to your hand if the levels are between those scales. So it's good for, shall we say, if you use 2 Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragons to overlay into Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, you have that rank 7 monster, and then you played both its abilities off, and your overlay units are in a graveyard. Pendulum back lets you return them back to your hand as long as you have the scale. Which then leads us on to Pendulum Reborn. It works like a Call of the Haunted, but especially for pendulum monsters. So unlike Pendulum Back, it doesn't return them back to your hand, and you don't actually need the scale. You just get to special summon it from your graveyard or face up on the extra deck. So even if your scale gets popped, you've still got this. And then we have a Scrap Iron Scarecrow. I find it's just a store really. A Mirror Force. A Bottomless Trap Hole, every deck needs one. A Magic Cylinder. And lastly, a Grand Horn of Heaven to stop those special summons your opponent comes up with. So yeah, that's the main deck, and we'll quickly go on to the side deck. I won't, keep you guys that long. 1 Odd Eyes Rebellion using Zanki and Zhangsheng Magician in correlation to an Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, which is what I basically use to bring Rebellion Dragon out. I barely ever use Zhangsheng's Magician. It's mainly just Odd Eyes Absolute, and then with Zanki's Pendulum ability, along with another level 7. So yeah, that's 2 Absolute Dragons, and it's got a very decent ability, even when it leaves the field. You get to special summon an Odd Eyes monster. Then we've run 1 Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon. I absolutely love this card. Ditch both materials, half one of your opponent's monsters, and you gain that attack. And so you do it to a Blue Eyes White Dragon. That Blue Eyes drops to 1/5, and you go up to 4k attack. It's great. Then we have 1 Odd Eyes Meteor Burst, a Stardust Dragon, and an Enlightenment Paladin. Enlightenment Paladin I use only if I need to recycle, shall we say, Odd Eyes Fusion or Pendulum Call. Then I'll focus on bringing it out that way so I can return it back from the grave to our hand. We then have a Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. I don't really need to tell you guys what this does. I hope to God that all of you know what this does and how awesome it actually is. Then we have a Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. By far my favourite synchro of all time. Like, nothing beats it. Its ability is great. I just love it. You blow up every special summon monster on the field except itself, so yours included, and your opponent's, obviously. And then your opponent takes 500 for each. So if you pendulum summon 4 other monsters with, Scarlight on the field, that's a straight up 2k damage to them, regardless of what they've got on the field. And the chances are the next turn you will be able to pendulum summon all those back, provided they're pendulum monsters. Then we run 2. Oops, sorry, excuse me. 2 Odd Eyes Vortex Dragons, the best Odd Eyes Fusion card, or even Odd Eyes card to date. I may have contradicted myself already, but yeah, it's great. As soon as it's special summoned, whether you've Call of the Haunted it, bought it back from, shall we say, a Red Eyes Darkness Metal, or even just fusion summoned it to begin with, you bounce one of your opponent's attack position monsters back to their hand, and then if your opponent wants to activate any spell or trap cards or monster effects even, you simply return 1 face-up pendulum monster from your extra deck back into the deck. You then shuffle it, and then you negate and destroy that card. So it's great. Then we have 2 Beast Eyes. You don't even need polymerization to bring this out, and that's what I like about it. And the only Beast I run in this deck is obviously Splash Mammoth. So Splash Mammoth will be the only card I use to bring this out, which means when it destroys an opponent's monster via I apologise again. Via Beast Eyes' ability, you then get dealt an instant 1/9 in life point damage, and I just find that great. And say you used Odd Eyes, Pendulum Dragon, and Beast Eyes to bring this out. The next turn, you can then re-pendulum summon those 2 monsters and bring out the second copy. So it's just great. And then lastly, I run 2 Rune Eyes Pendulum Dragons. I, to be honest, rarely ever use this. It's just, something that's relatable to oddizers, and it's in there. Ideally, I want to run one, and then before this ban list was released, and I saw that stuff was obviously going to be taken out, which really does run my deck down a bit. I was going to replace this with the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon from the new Shining Victories set when that gets released. But yeah, that's it. That's it now. And so that's the end of that deck profile. I apologise for the shaky camera work and the mumbling of words. I'm still fairly new to this, but I hope you all enjoyed it, and feel free to leave any comments or suggestions in the comment section below. And if you like what you see, just hit that like button. And this is iAzerXD signing off.